from Mount Sinai Long COVID Care Unit, and Ravi Varaya, a long COVID sufferer and advocate. Thank you both for being here with us this morning. So first, Dr. Pacino, I want to start with you. What exactly does it take to be diagnosed as a long hauler? I mean, is it kind of hard to distinguish between, maybe shortness of breath that could be related to something else?
Well, I think the most important thing right now in diagnosing long COVID is, of course, listening to the person who has long COVID. Right now, patient-led initiatives are so important because the patients themselves are the experts on this condition. So we follow CDC guidelines for diagnosis of long COVID at Mount Sinai, which is really monitoring any new or worsening existing symptoms that are persisting for more than 4 weeks after an acute infection with COVID.
So let's ask a very patient. Ravi, thanks for being with us. Tell us what your symptoms were, how you knew you had long COVID, and was that a diagnosis?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I never knowingly had COVID. I belong to the sizable minority of long haulers who develop long COVID from an asymptomatic case. So early March last year, I suddenly felt overcome by this very overwhelming fatigue. And at first, I didn't think it was long COVID. It just didn't occur to me. I thought it was something maybe more like ME or chronic fatigue syndrome. It was only when it continued and I didn't get better, and also that I paid increasing attention to my secondary symptoms, namely that I'd lost my sense of smell and my sense of taste was much diminished, that I realized it was almost certainly long COVID, and that was then confirmed by a specialist long COVID clinic. But it's been 10.5 months now, and this illness has taken away my life. I've had to spend almost 16 hours a day in bed every day for months. I've had to put my studies on hold, haven't been able to work. I'm just waiting to get better at this point.
Oh my gosh. So Ravi, what were your conversations with doctors like? I mean, was it difficult to kind of come to this conclusion, or, because we talked about with the doctor about having to advocate for yourself as a patient. What was that like?
I personally have had quite positive interactions with doctors. I've been believed, and when I realized it was almost certainly long COVID, I was referred to quite a good long COVID specialist, London hospital. That being said, I think the main problem I've had is that even though I've been ill for 10.5 months, and I'm also quite young, I'm just 23, I haven't been given any medical treatment which directly targets my symptoms. I've been given some advice on symptom management, and I've been prescribed some antihistamines, which have had a fairly negligible impact on my fatigue. But what I haven't been given and what I really need is kind of drugs or treatment which improves the fatigue, so I'm able to live something more like the life I used to live.
Boy, this really hits home. At the very beginning of this pandemic, I traveled abroad, came back, and couldn't exercise for 6 months, and I just never knew why. Doctor, what are we learning about long COVID, and what about its treatment?
Yeah, it's a great question, and Ravi, I'm sorry that you've been experiencing this for so long. And I think that experience is shared by many people with long COVID. Right now, in terms of treatment, obviously we need to be as responsible as possible in terms of doing no harm. Medical management is serious and can, of course, create worse symptoms if you provide the wrong medications at the wrong time without fully understanding what the underlying pathology is that's going on, what is causing the symptoms. So right now we have a number of rehabilitation approaches that ease symptoms. We certainly can say at this stage that individuals who are engaging in these strategies experience a lessening of their symptoms, but they're not experiencing a full resolution of their symptoms. Right now, we're working with a number of leading scientists around the world to try and understand what's happening within the body. We're starting to understand that many people with long COVID are showing signs and symptoms of chronic inflammation and also changes in their body's ability to produce blood clots, minor blood clots throughout the system. So we're starting to really open the door to some discoveries around what we might be able to do from a medical standpoint to treat the underlying cause of long COVID.
So, Doctor, we hear from Ravi, that he's been dealing with these symptoms for 10.5 months. What do you tell patients that are asking you, how long am I going to have to live like this? At what point am I going to be able to go back to some semblance of normalcy?
Yeah, this is always a challenging conversation, and it's really hard to have these conversations with individuals who are living with these mysterious and persistent and debilitating symptoms. Frankly, you know, myself, when I'm working with patients, I err on the side of complete transparency. I say, we don't know how long these symptoms are going to last. We're still learning. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. I'm not going to stop updating you on the new information that we gain and the new treatments that are emerging. And we really just try to rethink the relationship with people with long COVID being partners, you know, and if someone with long COVID comes and says to me, have you read this new article? And I haven't read it, I say no. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to see if there's anything in here that we can act on immediately to make sure that people are getting the best treatment. But for right now, the best policy is complete transparency and openness with people with long COVID, developing a trust where if we can't have an immediate resolution to symptoms, we're at least working together to find something. But I've got to say, it's never a comfortable conversation.
Right.
Ravi, how does all that resonate with you, and how has this impacted your professional life as well as your mental health?
Yeah, the doctor is absolutely fantastic. His approach is exactly the approach that medical professionals need to take, and it's very heartening to see him saying all the things he said. It's had a fairly devastating effect on my professional life and also my mental health. So I've just graduated from University of America. I went to Stanford, and I was meant to go off to East Asia to do this master's program, which I was really looking forward to. But I've had to put that completely on hold because I just haven't been well enough to do academic work. And that's been fairly devastating. And it's also been devastating when it comes to my mental health, because prior to falling ill, I was a very active and healthy and lively 23-year-old, and I lived in the way that people in their early 20s do. I didn't treat my body particularly well. I didn't listen to my body. But I've gone from being that active 23-year-old to having to spend basically the whole of my life in bed. And that's an incredibly distressing and difficult change to wrap my head around. And early on, I have to say, I was incredibly depressed because I had no idea how long it would last. I had no way to kind of comprehend what was happening to me. But as it went on, I've kind of learned how to live with this, and how to live really believing that someday I'll get better and that I'll go back to the life I really want and that I once had.
Man, and we definitely wish that for you and wish you the best of luck. Dr. David Petrino from Mount Sinai Long COVID Care Unit and Ravi Varia, COVID long hauler. We appreciate both of your time today. Thank you so much, and best of luck to you, Ravi, and thank you for all you're doing, Doctor. I appreciate it.
Thank you.